You're listening to the Modern Mainframe, BMC's intelligent Z optimization and transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues on the mainframe and how BMC AIME and BMC CompuWare Solutions can help you build a mainframe-inclusive DevOps toolchain. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Mainframe. I'm Matt Dallaire. Today, we're talking about the developer experience, the tools, processes, and overall environment of writing mainframe code. Joining me today are BMC Director of Software Consulting, Elizabeth Maxwell, Senior Product Manager Mark Schettenhelm, and DevOps Evangelist Tony Anter. Elizabeth, Mark, Tony, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for having us.
So we hear a lot about the user experience, but lately in the industry, we're hearing more about developer experience. Elizabeth, why is the developer experience important, and what is different about the mainframe developer experience compared to that of developers in distributed environments?
So what we see in the mainframe environment is that the developer experience hasn't really changed much over a number of decades. It's kind of been in like a bit of a time capsule, and people have endured or put up with kind of really, green screen type technology, as we call it, which has not caught up with all the modern, fantastic technology that we have in the distributed space. So it's really been left behind, and I think that has led to people looking at the mainframe experience as quite a legacy experience, and led to it being held back and not modernized as much as it could be. And this is something we're very focused on today, to change that very experience.
Yeah, I think if you take a look at it, to tack on to what Elizabeth said, mainframe is about 5 to 8 years behind the distributed side as far as DevOps technology, developer experience technology, interface, all of that. And you're seeing a lot of those same trends for those of us that have been doing DevOps for a while. You see a lot of those same trends going on in the mainframe space in the exact same sequence that you see in the distributed space. And, things in distributed or DevOps in general started with automated deployment, source code management, some of those basic features. And then you started going into things like developer experience. And you're seeing that same shift happen on the mainframe.
You're right. There's a big change in that, and there is a lag. But what I've seen is the lag used to be very, very large. That lag is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So the mainframers are doing an amazing job in catching up. And that's what we want, to really have it that the platforms all work the same way in the way they develop and the tools. And so that's really catching up. It's been a lot of effort, but it's paying off.
As Elizabeth mentioned, for a long time, development on the mainframe has been siloed, using different languages, processes, development environments. But lately, there's been a lot of talk in the industry about adopting modern techniques like DevOps and Agile. Mark, how does this change what's expected of a mainframe developer?
That's an interesting question, because you're saying what's expected of a mainframe developer. And when you hear what's expected, it's then going to be more productivity, right? And more things, which, yes, that's why you would want to do these changes, right? To get more things to the end user. That's natural. But I think there's a little more behind that, that you're trying to deploy more frequently, break things down. And when you talk about the different tools and techniques, a lot of it is to make the developer experience so much better. So what's expected of them is to deploy more frequently and deliver things and get more throughput. But it's really expecting them to use their minds more. And let me explain. It's by having these tools which enhance productivity and the automation, it gets rid of that burden of a lot of manual things you're doing and making it so that you spend your time being creative and designing interesting solutions rather than doing manual tasks. So what's expected of developers is really to be more creative in solutions and provide more innovation rather than expecting them to do a lot of rote tasks.
Tony, from your experience, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Mark hit it right on the head. The only thing I would say to tack on to that is that I don't think the expectations of a mainframe engineer or a mainframe developer are any different than what you see on the distributed side or developing on any platform. I think that now, as the mainframe's self-isolation is starting to end and they're starting to blend into the rest of the org and not be something different, something separate, the expectations are merging and becoming the same. End of the day, the business wants to see more value, faster, quicker release cycles, more story points per sprint, however they're measuring it. They want to see that done, and it doesn't matter what the platform is. So this is the same message as the mainframe is just another platform. Well, the expectations on that platform are the same as every other platform.
That leads well into my next question. A recent IDC survey, and I'll include the link in the show notes, found that 82% of organizations want to prioritize using the same tools across distributed and mainframe environments. So what are the benefits of using the same development tools across platforms? Mark?
All of this is to break down silos so you don't have a separate mainframe experience and distributed experience. And the reason you want that is because your applications don't work that way. Your applications are really one thing that use both. They may start on the front end and the distributed side, but then the mainframe's there for the back end. So your applications work that way. You want the developers to work together and have the similar patterns of work. So they have the same sprint schedule and they do the handoffs. And it's really hard to work together when you're doing things differently. It's just naturally not going to mesh. By having the same schedules and by both using the same development processes, by using some of the same tools, the more familiar you get, then it gets to what we always say is it's just different in syntax. But that pays off. There's fewer differences between what they're working on, and it pays off for the organization because everyone is pulling together rather than kind of going off in different ways.
I think also when you think about the mobility of moving your workforce around to service the business, it's really important because you've got business demand for the distributed systems and the mainframe systems. And as Mark said, they're in a continuum. So you want to be able to move people to develop and shape your functionality that you're delivering back to your customer, regardless of whether they're sitting in distributed or mainframe. You want to break that silo down so that you can move people across this continuum quite easily to really service the business. I think that's a massive thing as well in terms of the mobility of people, I would think.
So in the same report, IDC recommended that organizations enable developers to work the way that they want with familiar tools at their fingertips. The report also indicates that not only does the mainframe developer experience impact the recruitment of talent, it also greatly affects the ability to empower new developers to be productive contributors more quickly. How do these tools and processes help new developers become productive more quickly?
I think a happy developer is a productive developer. And one of the many ways to make developers happy is to give them the tools and the things that they want, the capabilities. When you were playing sports and, if you played Little League Baseball, you had that bat, at least I always did. You had that bat that you always used, the same one that made you feel good when you got up to the plate. It's the same thing with developers, right? They have the tools that they like and the views that they like and the pieces that they like. And that's what makes them happy and more productive. And again, the happier someone is, the more productive they're going to be. Give the people what they want, to quote P.T. Barnum.
I'd also say that developers are inherently creative people. And if you can give them a toolbox of tools that they can use in the way that they see fit, then you're satisfying them, you're satisfying their creativity, and then you're also allowing them to innovate. And with innovation also comes efficiency inherently back into that process. And that's a really powerful thing to do with people, rather than force them to all do the same thing with the same toolbox. And also, we want to inspire more automation and automation of tasks that are heavily manually dependent today. And that's what we do as technologists. We use technology to make our lives easier. And why wouldn't developers do that as well?
Right. And I like this emphasis on creativity because that's the real positive aspect here is unleashing the developer creativity. And a key part of that is having these tools to automate and to have that tools of choice so that they can not think about the tools or drudge work. It really goes back to, again, creativity and coding. And the tools they have support that.
So what is the impact on the business in terms of productivity? Tony?
I'll go back to what I said. A happy developer is a productive developer. And the more productive a developer is, the more changes, the more story points, the more releases, the quicker your throughput on business initiatives is going to be. And with that, the business gets their value. The business's job is to make money, is to push out solutions, is to have additional capabilities added to the platform or to whatever their offering is. And a productive developer is going to be able to do that quicker and more efficiently. And to the point that Elizabeth and Mark were making, more creatively. Making everything a delight, making your day-to-day development, your day-to-day work a delight, just makes everything better. And when everything is better, the business will get more value out of that.
I think something I would add to that as well is if you have the choice and the empowerment to use tools as you see appropriate to be as efficient as possible, you're creating and you're having a personal pride in doing that. And you're feeling accountability. So if you've got accountability and creativity, you're really going to be thinking not only about making a small change to satisfy a use case, but you're going to be thinking a couple of steps beyond that. So again, it harnesses the creativity because you're accountable for what you're doing and because you've got pride in your job. And I think enabling people to do that with a toolbox and not forcing them to use things in certain ways, I think just brings massive value to the business because you're propelling ideas, thought leadership, as well as quality back into the development lifecycle.
It seems like it also helps, like we said with the onboarding, with somebody new, that if you're moving from a different department, a different platform, a different company, you don't necessarily have to relearn the new tools.
Oh, an excellent point. We always want like the plug and play, which is a great idea, difficult to do, but by eliminating those barriers of you have to learn a whole new way of working and whole new tools, it strips it down to you might have to learn that application, which is its own struggle, but that's the only thing you would have to learn. Or if you were going from distributed to mainframe, perhaps a different language. But if you use similar tools and you work in the same way, then you don't have to worry about that. It's less of a barrier to entry to be able to move people from one team to another, which is an exciting thing for many developers too, to be able to shift into something else and learn more things. So that's a key benefit by standardizing on a lot of these things.
And it actually helps with your recruiting. It's not so long ago that I was recruiting developers and running teams. And in fact, it was a very short time ago. And you would be surprised at the amount of people who really want to make sure that the tool sets they like and the development environments they like and the things that they like are at a company they're going to go to. A lot of times, with all things being equal, that's the deciding factor, at least in my experience.
Good point.
I was just thinking that, Tony. I was just thinking about the expectations have completely changed. When you're employed by someone, you have expectations of the employer and then they have expectations of the employee. And when you go in, if someone's saying to you, you've got to do something manually because we don't have a tool to do it, you're like, what? Why not?
Well, yeah.
And if you're manual there, then what else are you manual? It brings up a lot of questions like, if you don't even have this, I need to ask more questions.
Yeah, I mean, ask yourself something, right? Because I'm not traditionally a mainframe guy. If I was going to go to a job and they told me, yeah, you have to use VI for your code editing, I'm probably going to look somewhere else, right? So that developer experience, you don't sometimes you don't understand how important it is and how big a decision maker that is, especially for people that are either taking a new job or new in the industry.
Well, and it goes back to what you're saying is unleashing your creativity. And it's like, I want to soar and be creative and deliver all these wonderful things. And yet you're shackling me down with things that I have to do manually. That's not interesting to me.
Yeah, just like Gene Kim's book, The Unicorn Project, he talks about making work a delight, and it's very hard to make work a delight with all those chains wrapped around you, for lack of a better term. I'll throw in a little Charles Dickens just to round the whole thing out. So,
and you're going to lose your brightest stars
yeah,
because their expectations are so different and they don't want to do all that manual stuff. There's no way. Yeah, and you're just going to lose, and then you're going to be left with people who are, of a different mindset, which is not going to propel the business forward.
Right.
no,
And we're talking about attracting new talent or moving people around, but even for the, I'll say, veteran developer, it really matters too, because once you can demonstrate, again, you don't have to do that drudge work that you probably hate, that by this automation, you actually can do more and be more creative and really make your job fun again. It can pay off to retain your current staff.
yeah,
You're right, because, as people in society, we are bombarded and assisted by lots of modernization of technology. So to go from that world where you live in as just a human being into a developer role where you're shackled to really quite old-fashioned interfaces and old-fashioned ways of doing things, anyone would be frustrated, whether you're new or you're, a very experienced person. You're going to have different expectations, even for those people. I would. I looked at a green screen the other day and I was like, really? Have I got to interface with that? I mean, I was like, come on.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And I've punched cards and did a lot on green screen, but no way. Just
yeah. I
like I
mean,
would never go back to cards, I would never go back to green screen.
yeah. I tell this story all the time, but I used to use VI quite extensively. And VI is a great, very powerful editor, but I would not go back to VI compared to VS Code or IntelliJ or any of the modern IDEs that I use today for doing development.
We all move on.
Yep.
And we need to. And that's to me, what's exciting about this career is that every 6 months it seems almost totally different, that it's always changing as long as we go with the changes. And that's what keeps it new and exciting, learning new things and being more productive and being more creative. That's what keeps us going.
And figuring out ways to make your job easier.
Yeah.
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 And there's no reason, and we've proven that there's no reason why the mainframe needs to be in a time capsule. This is very sophisticated technology. This has most of the IP and the business data on it in the world. There is no reason why we have to use a green screen. There's other ways of doing this, which we've proven, and many customers are doing this. So why keep people shackled? No need at all.
The mainframe is as modern a platform as any platform in the data center.
Yes.
And what's being held back is the mainframe application development is holding itself back. They're not changing with the times. And a lot of the technologies and capabilities that people take advantage of today, like cloud, isolated sandboxes, even some of the source code management stuff, was all started on the mainframe side. And this idea that the platform needs to change, if you look at the Z16, the platform doesn't need to change. What needs to change is exactly what we're talking about, which is application development and the experience and techniques that they use for application development.
And some customers that I've been speaking to have got this kind of black and white view of the mainframe. They're thinking, oh, it's old. We need to get off the mainframe. We need to redevelop all these applications on other platforms. But they don't need to do that. And many of our customers with huge success, even in some cases, the ZOS developers have outpaced their distributed counterparts, which is just incredible. That you don't need to make this decision to kind of kill off the mainframe applications and the real estate of the mainframe, because moving on to modern IDE is possible and here and today, and you can do it now. And that's what I say to many customers. And some customers haven't thought about that. They've just thought, no, we have to get rid of it. But you don't have to. Why spend all that time getting rid of it when you can modernize and have a great pace of development on that platform?
And how much sweat equity are you throwing away by doing that, Elizabeth?
Yeah, completely. Absolutely. It's astonishing. And you introduce all that risk into the business, redeveloping all these applications, testing them. And these are development cycles that actually businesses need to use to keep pace with the market, not to reinvent something and move it onto another platform when there actually is no need to do that.
Okay, I think this is a good spot to take a break before getting into the second part of our conversation, which centers on modern tools, including the new BMC AMI DevX Workbench VS Code and their adoption. So thank you to Elizabeth, Tony, and Mark on what's been a lively discussion so far. Be sure to tune into our next episode for part 2. Until then, take care, and we'll talk to you next time on the Modern Mainframe. You're listening to the Modern Mainframe, BMC's intelligent Z optimization and transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues on the mainframe and how BMC AMI and BMC Compuware Solutions can help you build a mainframe-inclusive DevOps toolchain.